Indonesian Vocational Teacher Association, also Indonesian Teacherpreneur Association, UC Berkeley, California. UC Berkeley from USA, NJCU from USA, also Fuzhou Polytechnic, China. To start this webinar in a good mood and run smoothly, I would love us to pray first according to your own religion and beliefs. So everyone, let's pray start. Amen. Pray finish. I hope this event will be enjoyable and worth of knowledge. Before we start opening for another speech, I would love to tell you for today's event itinerary that will be opening. Then we're going to listen to Indonesian national anthems. Then we have STEKOM University Rector opening speech from Dr. Joseph Teguh Santoso, who also a director of Digital Creative Economic from Teacherpreneur Association. Then we have our first speakers. From UC Berkeley, Dr. George Anwar, Ph.D. Then we have our second speakers from NJCU, Professor Moitari Chatterjee. Then after Professor Moi, we have Professor Hong Sang Chao from Fuzhou Polytechnic, China. Then we have Dr. Abur Mustikawanto from Indonesian Vocational Teacher Association. Then we have Mr. Mampuono as the Vice Chairman from the Indonesian Teacherpreneur Association. And for the next session, we will have to, before that, we also have at the end, we have the Q&A session. For the Q&A session, all the audience can write all the questions in the chat room and we will ask them later. Or if you want to ask live directly later in the segment, you can raise your hand. And for the next session, we will listen to Indonesian national anthem. So Mr. Solihan, you may take over.
Okay, thank you. And okay, thank you. And the next session is opening speech by Rector of STEKOM University. He is head of Advanced Indonesian Vocational Teacher Association Industrial Strategic Partnership, Dr. Joseph M.Kom. It's time to opening speech, please. Dr. Joseph, are you ready?
Cek. Selamat datang.
Okay.
Selamat pagi semuanya. Oh, saya melihat teman baik saya Pak Hari. Halo, apa kabar Pak Hari? Selamat pagi. Ya. Tamu undangan terhormat ya. Oke. Selamat datang juga untuk teman-teman saya semua di sini ya. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the honorable our speakers today. George Anwar, Ph.D. from Berkeley University of California, and Professor Moitai Chatterjee, Ph.D. from New Jersey City University, California, and Professor Hung Sang Zhao from Fuzhou Polytechnic, China, and Mr. Mampuono from Smart Indonesian Teacherpreneur Association, and Dr. Abdul Mustikawanto, Chairman of Foreign Affairs, IGVIM. Ladies and gentlemen, may I first take this occasion to pay tribute to all the audience of this international webinar with the title IoT and Cybersecurity in the Industry, held by STEKOM, Universitas Sains and Teknologi Komputer, or STEKOM University, in collaboration with Smart Indonesian Teacherpreneur Association, Advanced Indonesian Vocational Teacher Association, and Berkeley University of California, New Jersey City University, or NJCU, California, and Fuzhou Polytechnic, China. It is a great pleasure and an honor for me to deliver these welcome remarks at the opening of this international webinar. May I first take this opportunity to express my gratitude and appreciation, as well as extend a cordial welcome to all the audience, in particular, all the speakers of today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, in this webinar, besides as a rector of STEKOM University, I also as head of IGVIM's Industrial Strategic Partnership. I would like to give some information on in this occasion, as we know that the development of technology nowadays is changing rapidly. As the title of our today's events about IoT and cybersecurity in the industry, as we all know that now we are living side by side with technology. In other words, we, as if cannot live without technology. For example, maybe some of the participants of the event this time feel more confused if your cell phones are left behind than others item or your wallet are left behind, right? So these are just a few examples that we are very dependent on technology. IoT, or Internet of Things, is slowly making its way in every aspect in our lives. If you don't own an IoT device yet, you will surely own one soon. Ladies and gentlemen, talk about the security and IoT. These two things are connected each other. We have to concern about security of the IoT, especially in industry. It's reasonable for companies to be concerned about the security of IoT device development in industrial environments. Each device has an associated risk to data and operational integrity. As compromised internet-connected device could create a pathway for attacks on connected system, including critical control system. While essential secure by design, IoT devices are not enough to manage all the risks. Threats to device security exist throughout the complex industrial IoT device design. This includes compromised software from technology developers, poor security practice by OEM, weakness in the distributor security practice, poor security enablement in implementers, and insecure connection of device to IoT platforms and cloud systems. Maintaining security throughout device lifetimes requires careful coordination with external suppliers and support groups. Companies need to understand this challenge and develop appropriate risk management strategies before with widespread development of industrial IoT device. Industrial products suppliers recognize the growing demands for information, connectivity, and ease of data sharing have become mandatory requirements for new applications and controllers. Networks are being upgraded with powerful new age devices that support local data collections, analysis, and control. Smart access like robots and autonomous vehicles are being designed for remote monitoring and support. All system elements are becoming industrial IoT devices that must be protected. While the benefits are clear, the explosions in connected device undermines the effectiveness of conventional industrial cybersecurity strategies. Constraining open connectivity may be important, but it protects business leaders who need to reduce costs and address competitive challenge. Companies need strategies to deal with the cyber to IoT device. Ladies and gentlemen, the technology of IoT device vary greatly. Some are basic sensors, while others are advanced monitoring systems. Although security is concerned vary, users expect consistent and predictable performance of all IoT devices. It is critical to ensure secure development life. This step compromise communication with external system. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully this webinar will open our eyes about AI and also cybersecurity in the industry. To conclude, I would like to extend my appreciation to the International Affairs Organization of STEKOM University for making this international webinars. And finally, I wish you to enjoy the webinar today. Let's pray that our effort remains in the blessing of God Almighty. Amen.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Joseph. And so now in the next session is from Dr. George Anji from IoT and Cybersecurity in Industry by Dr. George Anwar. So, Dr. George, are you ready to get your time for a presentation? Dr. George Anwar?
Yeah. Okay.
Dr. George?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, you can get your time right now.
Well,
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Because okay. Hopefully I come in clear. Let me share my slides. You can see my slides or my opening slide.
Yes, we can see.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I wasn't sure exactly what really is the main thrust of the topic of the webinar, but I know it's partly is for IoT. So since most of the audience are faculty or teachers, so I decided to really focus on what is it that we do introduce to our students and how to introduce IoT to mechanical engineers. So it might be a little bit unexpected in terms of, rather than the computer science and the security aspect of it, it's more, as mentioned before, in terms of IoT coming into our lives, it is clearly a huge part of mechanical engineering. And you see as I present that as of 2020, one of the largest implementation of IoT device is in manufacturing and automation. So it is a critical part for mechanical engineers, although most mechanical engineers come into the program not wanting to do any programming. And that's no longer true today in terms of any reasonable complexity mechanical system has basically a processor in it. So let's get started. So this is just an overview of what I'll be at least talking about. And just to give you an idea how we introduce IoT to our students, our mechanical engineering students. And then we talk about what it is, and then a little bit of a history of IoT, very short, and then basically the application areas that was listed as the top 10 application areas in 2020 for IoT. Then I'll go over what we do in terms of the IoT research at UC Berkeley, what has been done. We've been in the IoT area for quite a long time, even before it was famous as IoT. We've been doing things in terms of sending information to at least a server, not necessarily at that point known as a cloud, but now it's known as the cloud. And then I thought it'd be interesting, since most of you are teachers, and I know that there hopefully are some students in the audience as well, is to show some examples of student design projects. These are all from mechanical engineers. That is, it's for most of them, actually almost all of them, it's their first exposure to integrating programming into a mechanical device. Okay, so it's fairly new to them, and some of them, yeah, come up with pretty creative stuff. Okay, so IoT, Internet of Things. I'm sure most of you know more about Internet of Things than a mechanical engineer does, but basically, what is it? For us, in terms of how we expose it to students, just for them simple to understand and moving forward, you should have already noticed in the market that basically we tell our students, just put smart in front of any word and that becomes an IoT device. And pretty much that's how it is nowadays. There's like smart doorbells, smart appliances, and so forth. But from a manufacturing perspective, there is this whole notion of now the industrial IoT, okay? And then, of course, linked with it is the Industry 4.0, and who knows when Industry 5.0 will come along. But we are sort of in a state of revolution where we have to understand the importance of data, right? All of it is about data. And then where mechanical engineers come in, which a lot of it is in conjunction with electrical engineering, is really the sensing part, okay? For the longest time, mechanical engineering has sort of been behind in terms of how to utilize data. But now it is coming into the picture very, very quickly, okay? So a lot of it is coming in for, in terms of preventive maintenance. More and more industrial products will probably work on a subscription basis in which they no longer have to have scheduled maintenance, but more of it is that the data will actually tell you when they'll recognize patterns in terms of, you know, your equipment might be exhibiting basically a change in behavior. So one of the things with mechanical systems is that once you make a mechanical system or you create a mechanical system, and you're monitoring it from a controls perspective, where you're monitoring data, how it moves, how its acceleration, its vibrations, whatever. Mostly it's measuring vibrations, but it turns out that with any device, it's unique to that device, but they will, if you have sensitive enough sensors or enough sensors, different sensors and so forth, more often than not, it's a signature. It's like a fingerprint to that mechanical device. And after the early burn-in period, it is actually for quite a long time that that mechanical system will exhibit that behavior. If it's operating properly, that signature will always be there. And it's amazingly how similar the data is. Okay, so it becomes a signature. So if you monitor the signature, you can very easily and very early on begin to identify that something might be changing. Okay, especially in manufacturing, where the operations with these equipments are the same thing, right? Someone could manufacture 1 million of a particular product. So the machine is doing the same thing, especially with robots. They'll do exactly the same thing over and over and over again. And then it's a fingerprint. So very, very early on, before even we can visually sort of see it, now with AI and machine learning and data that's coming in, huge amount of data, you can actually begin to see a change in the pattern very early on. So mechanical engineers are beginning to understand that and realize that in terms of the importance of data, not just getting a piece of equipment to work and then let it run, and then, you know, every so often come in with scheduled maintenance and check it and so forth. More and more with the cost of sensors dropping, that mechanical engineers need to understand how to design with these sensors and what to do with the data. Okay, and that's where sort of, right, the advent of IoT is begin to come up. So typically what we'd expose our students to is basically the structure of IoT from, again, a mechanical engineering perspective. Okay, so it starts out from the left, where you have a sensor. The whole idea is the integration of a sensor to a mechanical system. And we try to expose our students and start getting them to think, or mechanical engineers to think about, well, what benefit can you get from making a measurement? And sometimes the recognition of this benefit might not be immediate. Okay, it's just collect the data. And then in the future, we'll realize what this data can do for us. So the big part of it that's at the beginning is to sense, integrate sensors to measure the environment, and then send data to the MCU. So you'll notice that most of the students that we're exposing to IoT, they're mechanical. So they understand how to design the mechanical structure. A lot of them will understand about making measurements, but they're not aware of sensors, right? That's basically the electronic parts of it. So they get exposed to electronics to understand what are the available sensors, how do you go about making these measurements, and then how do you send the data to a MCU, okay? Then within the MCU, right, we select MCUs that have, of course, that are Wi-Fi ready, right? And basically they learn about processing the data, formatting the data, and then sending it to the cloud. Following after that, of course, once you do send it to the cloud and you have data, the idea is, of course, you want to take that data and do some computation with it. Okay, you process the data to make a decision. Now, some of these data which we expose to our students is for them to understand that you don't necessarily need to make the decision right away, right? Versus those that are doing feedback control and has to process the data locally. So there are two sets of data that we deal with. One that goes into the cloud that deals with very, very large amount of data, okay? And then those that are computationally localized, for example, in terms of robotics, in terms of controls and so forth, okay? So then, of course, after you do the computation in the cloud, you transmit that action back to the MCU, and then the MCU will then right, do some form of actuation, right? So this is usually the cycle of the IoT application that we deal with for mechanical engineering. But bottom line, what we want them to realize moving forward is that data, okay, information, it's all about the data. We start to expose to our engineers that the data, right, data has value. Data is actually your asset, okay? You can actually monetize the data. That's sort of the shift that we're beginning to see in the industry. Okay, there's a lot of mechanical engineering companies that are working along with universities is to figure out how do you go about monetizing this data, which is mechanical system data that usually consumers don't care about, right? The general consumer doesn't care about the mechanical data. They don't care what does the vibration information means. It doesn't mean anything to them. But for a manufacturer, it can mean everything. So we try to expose our students to this and get them to be in this mindset where the data to measure how a mechanical system operates is actually important. And having that knowledge can actually differentiate you from, differentiate your product from other products. Soon it'll be that it's not necessarily, of course, the design is sort of part of it, but then behind it, where the value of that product is going to come into fruition, is really the machine learning and the AI that's behind the scenes that can recognize these patterns. So there's definitely a lot of research at the university in terms of how to come up with these AI algorithms. And right now, a lot of these AI algorithms are very specific for a particular, either piece of equipment or field or what have you, okay? But it is really getting stronger. That recently at Berkeley, I think this is actually, the second year. Last year was the first year. Well, it's either the second or third year that computer science has actually branched off to have data science. There's now a data science program at UC Berkeley. And the data science instantly, overnight, had become one of the biggest groups within the engineering. Before it was under computer science, but now there's data science is their own department in their own field. Okay, this is something that I like to present to students just so that they know that this field of IoT is relatively new compared to most of the technology that they've exposed to in terms of mechanical engineering. Okay, the mechanical industry, right, which the strong foundation is the automotive industry as well as the aerospace. But the automotive industry in the US is probably about 120, 130 years old. So that's usually the time frame that most of my mechanical engineering students are sort of aware of. Okay, they're looking at technologies that is about 100, 150 years old. And I like to sit there and point out to them that even with IoT, okay, the history of the IoT or the technology that we use on IoT actually started out in 1830. Okay, it's actually quite early. Basically with Samuel Morse, right, in the Morse code, the electric telegraph, right, which is, for most of you, right, if you recall from the Western movies, you see the little gadget that which are dots and dashes, dot, dot, and dashes, and dot, dot, and dash. And that's actually no different from how we transmit data today. We just do it by different means. We do it by a means that's faster than a finger being able to push the device, but we're always sending zeros and ones, which is no different from dot and dashes. So we haven't changed much, okay? But it's a very effective means of sending data, okay? But the aspect of today's IoT, or where it is started, right, in around 1982, okay, the first internet connected appliance was actually a Coca-Cola vending machine that was at Carnegie Mellon University, okay? Then following that, Microsoft actually tried for a very, very short attempt, right? Is there Microsoft at Work, which was the product that they had between 1993 and 1997, but they pulled it out very quickly. They were very, very early in the essence of having things that were internet-based. Now, the Internet of Things itself was coined by Kevin Ashton from Procter & Gamble, and that was in 1999. But according to the history, it is Cisco System that estimated that the birth of IoT was between 2008 and 2009. Okay, this was basically to get our students interested so that they realize they're working at a fairly new technology. Okay, but interestingly enough, you know, most of the students that I have today, they're just toddlers when the birth of Internet of Things came along. So it's definitely in their generation. So as you can see right now, at least as of 2020, these can actually shift and change. As it was mentioned, right, on the introduction, that IoT is a very quickly rising field. And if you haven't had an IoT device, you will very soon, okay? But the number one field still of 2020 is manufacturing, okay, it's the manufacturing industry, basically factory automation. More and more of the factory are now interlinked, okay, basically equipment within a factory itself, as well as linking of the factory and logistics and everything else. All this information and data are all tied in, okay, tied into a main server. And then you're going to see some of the application, especially as you are aware of, right? The big players in the Internet of Things are the big players like Google, with all of their different divisions. Google, of course, a big part of theirs is the autonomous vehicle, okay, which is actually second if you look at transportation. So this whole thing with the IoT and the sensors and everything else and the networking, of course, those are the technologies that is bringing about, right, autonomous vehicles, which is a very, very rapidly growing field. But as mentioned, also at the introduction of this webinar, the big thing is, of course, cybersecurity, right? When it comes to autonomous vehicles and so forth, okay, yeah, cybersecurity really comes into the field. In terms of most of the work and the exposure to mechanical engineering students, of course, they're aware that cybersecurity is an issue, but we are more considering in terms of how the data is being used. We rely on the fact that an entirely different field will take care of the cybersecurity issues, but it is, of course, of our concern, especially when we do controls, okay, and feedback. So right now, at least in all of these fields, the Internet of Things is still mostly about the transferring of data. The actual idea of having live control is still something of big concern until we completely are certain that, you know, the security issues are taken care of. So a lot of times the feedback is still done locally, but it's a matter of having trends and long-term data sent to the cloud for processing. So you can see some of the ideas, but manufacturing is definitely the largest. And this one, as you can see, again, connected devices by 2020. Okay, you can see when they started, or Cisco was starting to collect the data in 2003. Okay, you can see in terms of connected devices how many there were compared to the world population, right? And then by 2020, you can see there are already more connected devices than there are people on the earth. Okay, there's about 7, right? And it's going to be growing. It's double. It's basically the connected devices as predicted by this chart is that it will double every 5 years. Okay, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. Okay. Okay. So one of the examples of IoT that we've done, which has been an incredible benefit and is still being in use today, is basically building performance. Okay. We were with this research, which, as you can see, was done in, it's amazing that it's almost 10 years that we did this research on. And it's sort of the beginning of doing wireless sensing, right? Or the whole idea of IoT. Part of it, why we were able to do this in terms of in the center of built environment and early on, is because 4 of the top 5 internet or wireless-based sensing, okay, or the mesh network, 4 out of 5 of the companies were actually founded from the electrical engineering department at UC Berkeley. So we at the center of built environment was able to get early exposure to these wireless sensing devices, and we basically created this IoT device. To talk a little bit about the Center of Built Environment, it was mainly a research center that collaborates with industry to basically do studies on the efficiency of buildings. Okay, different methods of air distribution, and then the biggest thing is the comfort model. Okay, so there are huge amount of data, and then of course sensor data to basically characterize a building, to begin to understand what buildings provide better comfort for the occupants. Okay, and then there are studies that establish with better comfort, of course, you're a lot productive, your work output goes up, and all of that. But a lot of it is based on huge amount of data, right? As you can see here, in terms of the performance analysis, it also include, right, satisfaction surveys. So it's not just measurements. You have to sit there and interview the occupants of a new building and so forth, and then make huge amount of measurements pre-occupancy and then post-occupancy. And in order to do that, we came up with this internet-based data acquisition device. Mainly, it is also to create a design system for what is a UFAD, right, which is an underfloor air distribution system. So most of you, I think even on some of you on the background, I can already see that you're in a room that has the traditional overhead air distribution system, right? Your venting system of the air is above your head, okay? And usually in older constructions, it is that way. So then during this period, there was a new method that was coming into scene in the building industry, which is called the underfloor air distribution system. Oops. Oh, why did I go to the next slide? Sorry about that. The underfloor distribution system, and that is, rather than the air coming in through HVAC system overhead, air is distributed underneath the floor. And why is that? Part of it is because the infrastructure is already there. So if you notice on most buildings, the internet infrastructure is carried on a false floor, right? Most floors in office buildings are elevated, and underneath the floor is where they run all the internet cables. So the internet cables and infrastructure is already there. Then some clever architect decides, well, why don't we just distribute the air from underneath as well? Okay, so came the underfloor air system. Now, the problem with the underfloor air system is that with most building, it is always air conditioning. You don't really even heat it. Most of the buildings nowadays, even here where we did this building was in New York. We're in California and it's in New York. So we did all of our analysis in California, but all of our equipment was in New York, and we tied all the data through the internet. So the start of the Internet of Things to be able to do this, to be able to do remote monitoring. So the idea is that cold air comes in. The reason that the old ventilation system is that you have cold air on top is because when you send cold air will sink. So it naturally falls from the ceiling and it'll circulate the air and the whole room is cold. In an underfloor air distribution system, you actually put a thin layer of cold air on your feet. It's just on the ground, right? The air distribution comes in from the ground by these little vents that you see on the hole. And these are the Internet of Things devices, and we actually put them in the hole. Okay, we put them in the hole to measure the underfloor temperature of the system. And if you have the right amount of cold air and pressure, you'll see that you need to establish this distribution and make sure that this center point is within this zone for the room to be adjusted properly. So they needed a piece of equipment like this to adjust the floor pressure. What's the benefit? It takes less power to cool a room. And what it's based on is what causes this distribution is that when you're standing on cold air, your natural body current will actually carry the cold air from the floor to cool yourself. Okay, so you don't need a huge blower to blow the air. And what happens is it's naturally adjusting. The more people that you have, the more cold air gets lifted. The less people that you have, the less cold air. So it's automatically adjusting. And oops, okay. So what this was for is that is the New York Times headquarters, their new headquarters in New York. And they had an underfloor air distribution system. Up to that point, no one really knew how well the system works compared to a conventional system. That building, half of the building is conventional, half of the building is underfloor air distribution. And we basically created this IoT device or system of devices to basically make the measurement. So this is what it means by underfloor. Architects actually love the underfloor air distribution system because you're allowed to have then high ceilings, very high ceiling and open spaces, because you don't need the overhead air distribution system anymore. All of it's already underneath. And you have this space anyway, because again, of the internet that you have. But in order for it to work, you need a lot of sensors and a lot of data to adjust things properly. Okay, and these are what the IoT modules do. You put it on each one of these outlet vent, and you have to get a thermal distribution, and you want to adjust it until you have a fairly even temperature distribution. Then once you have that, the data gets transmitted to the cloud. Okay, the cloud then has within its storage the floor plan of the system, and again, where you put the IoT nodes, right, the mesh network, and then basically, right, you get a temperature distribution to that. And then you get an acceptance checking, and then how the floor is actually graded, okay? And system architecture, again, we have the wireless node sensors, goes with cellular network, sends the data to the cloud, and in the cloud is where we do all the analysis, where we can remotely monitor it, the analysis, like I did in California while they were in New York, okay? As well as collecting a huge database so that we can monitor how the building performance is after the occupancy. We do it once before anybody's in the building, and then we do it again when people occupy the building to see what the difference effects are with people being in there. Okay, this is just a few photographs of what it looks like in terms of the equipment and what was in the building. Okay, and then after that, we expanded it to actually measure the comfort level of each of the office stations. Okay, and these are now big sensor thing that measure the lighting to see how bright the lighting is, and then this little ping pong ball that's painted gray. Turns out that it models internally, if you have a temperature probe internally, that ping pong ball will model what temperature a human being actually feels. Okay, and the temperature we feel is not exactly the temperature of the air. Okay, so this was created by the group, and then basically we can determine what the human building is. So now we distribute these wherever a building needs to be rated in terms of the comfort level. And we had recently finished one project that was in Singapore to determine the comfort level of the building. So other research that we have, I think I'm running out of time, but is wearable sensors. I won't play the video. It's basically sensors are being developed now to basically where you are wearing it so that soon the IoT will include wearable devices where, for example, a doctor will actually know what your health conditions are before you start feeling bad. Okay, so the doctors will actually then call you and say, hey, you know, it seems like you might be a little bit ill, right? There's going to be more and more of those type of devices, right? And this is an example of wearable sensors where it's to measure basically the oxygen level, you know, your oxygen level basically, right? Right now, the prototype is, this one is fairly big, but it will get smaller with time. And again, right, the whole idea behind IoT, AI-powered robotics, right, is another area in which a server will collaborate multiple robots that are delivering these parts with the robots so that, right, the cloud basically controls the collaborations between multiple robots to have smooth factory production. The other aspect of the research that we've done is basically the exoskeleton. Okay, this has branched out to two companies, which are Sudex and Exobionics, and mainly the whole idea behind it is, of course, to help someone that can't walk to walk, but it is also to gather data to analyze the human gait. And it's okay, we're running out of time. So I just want to show you an example of some of the student design IoT. And these are also aspects of where they come up with, and again, they'll just put the smart word in front of it. And one of it is Amazon Go. And for the sake of time, I won't play this video, but I'm sure you've heard of Amazon Go. These are the next generation of shops that Amazon has, which is basically a supermarket where the shop itself is completely sensorized. There is about, in any one store, about over 300 cameras around the shops and sensors to basically monitor how people are shopping. So if you have the Amazon Prime account, if you have an Amazon Prime account, basically you just scan your account as you come into the store, and then anything you pick up from the shelf and either put into the bag or put into a shopping cart that they have, okay, will be charged. And you don't have to wait in line. There's no pricing, nothing. You just walk in and you walk out with the material and it gets charged to your account. And that's what Internet of Things will do for that. Now, this is just the store. And so with that, some of my students came up with the autonomous cart. So their concern is that elderly person, which is a huge population in the US, getting elderly, they need help when they're doing shopping. Some of them may not even be able to push the shopping cart, okay? So they come up with an IoT, and these are all students. These are all undergraduate students. And they have a proposed solution, which is an intelligent wheelbase with the driving mechanism and then a shopping cart on top. Now, the interesting thing upon their part is they realize that Amazon already has all the data. Amazon has all these cameras. So Amazon knows where these carts are. And they also know where the shopper is. So they rely on Amazon's server and AI to basically give them all the instructions. So all they need to do is connect to the server pairs it with the person, okay? And then they basically map out where the cart paths are, and then they just follow the shopper.
Hello, excuse me, Dr. Anwar?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you have 5 minutes left, is that all right?
Oh, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. According to my alarms, I'm supposed to be done, but that's perfect.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
it's okay.
thank you.
We can give
Thank
him
you.
5 more minutes.
So they basically come up with they design what the instructions they expect from the Amazon's mainframe or server. Amazon and mainframe with the store and all the cameras know exactly where the cart is, know where exactly the person is, and they send these instructions, and the students develop the control cart or the IoT device, which is the smart cart. Okay. Another student came up with this Baby Ink, and she actually started the company, and they had investors that were interested in her product, and actually even filed a patent for it. And basically, it's a baby seat that is completely instrumentized so that it is an IoT-enabled baby biometrics while the baby is sitting in the car seat. So you'll monitor the baby's heart rate, their temperature, whether the diaper is wet, and all of that, and then including a vocal activation by the phone to operate the car seat. And this one I will play the video because it's pretty impressive in terms of what the product is.
Dr. Anwar, I'm sorry, your
Yeah.
video doesn't come out the sound.
Oh, what was that?
It's not, the sound doesn't, your video doesn't have a sound.
Oh, yeah, you didn't pick up the sound. Well, it's okay. It's just very nice
Yeah.
music though. But
Oh.
that's okay. Okay. Well, what I'll do is the next one, I want you to hear the sound, I guess. And then that should be it actually. So just to end it, okay, in terms of students that are in the class, to show you an example of also just a class project, these two are actually Indonesian students that I have that are studying in our department, except she's a nuclear engineer and happens to be taking a mechanical engineering class. But this will also give you an idea of their exposure of what IoT is. Hopefully you'll hear this one.
Hi everyone, my name is Priscilla Evangelista and thank you Hi everyone, thank you for watching this video. My name is Priscilla Evangelista and today I'm accompanied by my friend
Stephanie Galina Sanjaya,
and we are very excited to show you guys our demonstration for Final Project Mechanical Engineering 100. To sum it up, we are going to make an automated motorized window blind where depending on the light outside, it will automatically turn on or off itself.
We would also be using an app called Blink, where we can manually turn off and on the blinds ourselves.
For this project, we are going to use an LDR sensor, an ESP32 microcontroller, Alto98N motor driver, an NEMA17 stepper motor, and this will all be powered up by an A2-bit battery. And this is the cardboard one we're going to put it here, but for the sake of this project, to show like this rotate, we're going to use this stick instead to clearly show the direction. Okay.
So we are writing this project in the language of C++ using Arduino IDE connected to our ESP32. Through this series of codes, we are connecting our ESP32 to the internet, as well as the Blink app and the LDR itself. Alright, so I'll be demonstrating you how this machine works. As you can see in ambient light such as this machine doesn't work at all, it wouldn't turn. So let's say that the sunlight comes, it's daytime. We can see that the machine turns, meaning that the blind is open. And let's say that the nighttime comes and it's getting dark. And we can see that the motor turned the opposite way, meaning that the blind is closed. We also have the app called Blink, in which we can use it to turn this machine left. And we can also use the other button, which is to turn the machine right, the opposite way.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. One note is I just want to keep in mind that those students is the first time that they were exposed to programming and the first time they were exposed to electronics. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar. Thank you so much. That was amazing. That's one kind of material. Thank you for your presentation. I hope you stay with us until later to the Q&A session in the end. That would be awesome. So, and we have for the next speakers, we have Professor Moitai Chatterjee, Ph.D. from New Jersey City University, USA. So, Professor Moi.
Yeah, thank you. And good morning once again.
Good morning.
So let me share my screen first. Do I have that? I think I do not have the screen sharing access yet. Let me check. Can you see my screen? Okay. So for today's talk, I am going to talk about one of my research that I have done as part of my PhD. So in this research, I'm going to talk about how cloud has been utilized or cloud has been abused as an attack platform. So in this presentation, I am going to talk about mostly two of my research paper, and I'm going to talk how it was part of a larger project and what we found and how we came up with this research idea and how we were directed in this research. So these are the two major research papers I'm going to talk about today. And just to give you an idea how my talk is outlined, I will first give you the introduction, like what to expect in the rest of the talk. Then I'm going to give you a little bit of motivation. Actually, little bit is a misleading term. The motivation is something that I want to talk about, talk elaborately, because it was part of another project, and how we came up with this idea and what motivated us in this direction is somewhat important before I start talking about rest of the part. And then I'm going to talk about some related works in this area And then I will move on to talk about the case studies that we have performed, or the simulation work we have performed for this work. And then I will move on to talk about what are the recommendations we think are suitable based on the research findings or the findings from our case studies. And finally, I will move on to conclude the discussion. And at any given point of time, if you have any question, please ask me or note it down so that we can discuss later on. All right, so first thing, what is this talk about? So this talk is going to give you some summarized responses of an interview, of an elaborate interview that we have conducted as part of our research. I will give you an idea what that research was in a second. So I'm going to give you the cumulative data that we collected from those interviews. Then I'm going to talk about the holistic analysis of how cloud has been abused by the attacker, or how cloud is getting abused by the cyber attackers. And finally, I'm going to talk about, some of the very generic attack steps that you need, like the very first step of any cyber attack that you need, how we simulated, what we found out. And based on our findings, what recommendation we have made, or what recommendation we think are important to take action for. So those are the certain things I am going to talk about today. Next thing, the motivation. So this research work was part of, as I said earlier also, that it was part of a larger project. So it was part of an NSF funded project where our research team were working in collaboration with the psychology department. So researchers from psychology department and computer science department, we were trying to develop a mental model of cyber attackers. So the main goal for designing that mental model was to develop more effective cyber education, cyber research, and as a defender or penetration tester, or even if you want to be ethical hacker, the necessary skill, KSA, knowledge, skills, and abilities that you would require. So that was our larger project. So for that project, we had to, we attended 2 conferences, security conferences, Black Hat and DEF CON in Las Vegas, USA. And in that conference, we recruited close to 75 interviewee, and we interviewed them about how they would have launched a cyber attack. And we presented those interviewee with some attack scenarios, very generic attack scenarios. And we did not ask them any specific question, but we presented the scenario and asked them, how would you do that? So that was the only question we asked them. We did not collected any personal information, any demographic information about them, so that, they can be more unguarded in sharing their knowledge. So we have like 5 scenarios. I'm not going to read from the slides, but I'm going to read the scenario 4. The scenario 4 is actually about deleting or stealing internet usage data. Some of us are really concerned about privacy and security, and we presented with a scenario that what if your internet service provider is trying to sell your data to a third party, and you want to log on to their server, master server, and you want to delete your information. How would you do that? So that was one of the scenario we presented to our interviewees, and as they talked about how they would have launched the attack, we noted their responses. We asked some follow-up question for any part that we did not understand. And sometimes we also asked them to, scribble on the paper and stuff like that. And also there was one option, like if someone want to talk about their own attacks, we wanted to have that open-ended question as well. So once we asked those questions, collected all the interview responses, we manually transcribed them and built use cases for each of those answers. And then we move on to analyze them. So this is a typical use case scenario for the use case for the scenario 4 that I just talked about, if you want to tamper with the data on ISP's servers. So we have all this information, but main part is the description over here where you want to, what do you call it? This part, the description part where you are trying to change or you are actually launching the attack. So here, some of the responses were like create a virtual private server on AWS instance, and then set up multi-hub VPN, encrypt the channel, use Tor browser, and then use some penetration testing tools and construct the SQL injection script, and then finally launch the attack. So this is a very generic or very, just a second, I'm trying to erase the ink. So this was one of the response we got. So using all the information or all these use cases, we noticed that there was a clear pattern, or there was a clear indication that all of the attackers were choosing the infrastructure as service model of cloud architecture to set their attack environment. Whatever kind of attack they are trying to launch, their preferred mode of staying stealth, their preferred mode of staying, creating less digital footprint or leaving less trace was cloud platform. And based on the responses that we received, we came up with this dynamic model of the cloud abuse pattern. We saw that they were trying to set up their virtual private server, set up the VPN, and set up all their tools and installing all their tools that they need to do reconnaissance, or maybe building the exploit or propagating the malware or whatever they're trying to do. They were selecting or doing it best of the cloud. So this was the main motivation for us to study further on what are the other kind of attacks that happens on cloud. So like the talk we just had about IoT. So right now we have cloud as the central point. So cloud is basically somebody else is hosting the server for you. So it is like a unlimited resource power, unlimited computing power that is centrally hosted by a third party. So if you try to propagate some phishing websites, if you try to propagate some malware, if you try to host your phishing website, if you want to launch a denial of service attacks, so you have that central repository where you can do it, and it will be immediately propagated to billions of devices. So there were evidences and other literature supporting all these different types of attacks that can be launched using the computational power provided to us by the clouds. And especially when there is free tier of all the cloud platforms. Now they have changed their rules and regulation, but when they had a free tier, it was getting abused majorly. Even for simple attacks like password and key cracking, or maybe captcha solving, or some lookup tables like rainbow tables where you can store your hash values and try to crack those values. So those kind of activities were getting performed using clouds. And there are some existing literature supporting the fact that there are some infrastructure and some forensic model to help identify that cloud is getting abused and to stop it, or to identify which cloud instance is right now being abused. However, they are not yet, I don't think they are widely adopted, and each of the cloud provider, they have their own um, security models or forensics model to identify the what do you call it, abuse detection model. Okay, so based on our findings and our existing literature survey, we came up with our case studies to create the groundwork for something called proactive, or something we call as proactive forensics, to to try to detect as and when the abuse start to happen. So we created two different virtual machines on Oracle VirtualBox. So one of them is obviously the ATAC VM, and we chose Kali Linux as our ATAC VM because for obvious reason, because it comes with all the penetration testing tools. And then we have a target VM, which is the Windows 7. And we chose, there is one thing that is a little bit different from actual cloud. Cloud is type 2 hypervisor. That means the virtualization happens right on top of the hardware. But we use the type 2 hypervisor where the virtualization happens within the host OS. So the virtualization is right on top of the OS or the software virtualization. So that's one difference from the cloud platform itself, but it is pretty close because some information or some things are common between the virtualization structure that cloud service provided. So we went on this direction, and we performed three different activities, or three basic activities that are, what do you call it, very common in performing suspicious activity. So one of them, or the first scenario that we simulated, is port scanning. Because when you launch an attack, when you try to launch a cyber attack, port scanning is one of the basic reconnaissance activity that you do perform. Or in our responses, it was evident that almost in all scenarios you would need to do a port scanning to find out which are the open port and which port is running what type of services, and so on and so forth. So using our ATAC VM, we run the Nmap tool that comes with Kali Linux, and we try to find out what is the IP address of the target VM, that is Windows 7. And then once we found the IP address, we ran the IP range scan command. And after we ran the command, we checked for the log files. We checked for what are the information that we get. We could find out what are the open ports, what are the services that are running on those ports, and what are the protocols those ports are running under. So those are the information we could find out for this particular port scanning activity. Next activity that we performed is execution of a ransomware. So we propagated the ransomware in our target VM, the Windows 7 virtual machine, and we ran it and tried to capture the dynamic behavior of that malware using process monitor tool. I know this picture is not very clear, but the process monitor showed us that, let me see if I can. So this is the column, probably, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but this is one of the column that we noticed is showing lots of registry activity. So the ransomware was the only program that was running on the target VM, and it was accessing the registry. It was changing values in the registry. It was querying a lot of values in the registry. So which means it is trying to capture a lot of system information. So those are some of the values, or this is just a snapshot of what the ransomware was trying to do. Other than registry, it performed bunch of file operation, network operation. Obviously, I could not feed the entire log file here, but it performed all those file operation, network operation, and API calls, and so on and so forth. So those information we could capture using the process monitor tool while running the ransomware. And why we captured this information, I will come back to that in a second. Next thing is a next activity that we performed is a DOS, denial of service attack. This we did not do it on the Windows machine. We had an internal server that we utilized to launch a protocol-based denial of service attack. And we use the Metasploit framework available with Kali Linux to launch the TCP/SYN flood TCP/SYN flood DOS attack on our server. And when we launched this attack, no other activities were happening in that network. It was an isolated separate network. So we ran the Wireshark and tried to capture the packet information. And if you see that it is highlighted in red at the bottom of this slide, it was like within a few seconds, it captured around 21,000, more than 21,000 packets, which clearly showed that there was a lot of communication going on between the attack VM and the server that we were trying to launch DOS attack. So these were some of the malicious activities. These are the three major malicious activities we tried to perform as part of our case studies. And we tried to look for evidences for all this, for these activities that are leaving traces. The major reason we try to look for the traces of our activity is to identify, to pinpoint, or to identify the areas how we can build an effective forensic suite or a better testing suite so that we can identify when a cloud virtual machine or cloud instance is getting abused or being abused. So from these three major activities, we found out that there are two major sources of evidences that tells us, or that could tell us that, okay, this instance is right now being abused, or there is something suspicious going on. So obviously we would, I mean, these are just the file information that we could gather. One of the source of evidence is the virtual machine snapshot. Another one was the virtual hard drive. They come with their pros and cons, obviously. Virtual machine snapshot contains a few different types of files, and it gives us memory information, container format, configuration and runtime information, and settings information. And the best part about snapshot is we can take the snapshot and start the virtual machine from the point where we left off. So it can restore the system immediately, and it makes the study more faster and easier. However, the problem is just because the host OS or the guest OS can be encrypted or can place encryption in encryption, it becomes hard to decrypt them first and then do the study elaborately. So encryption is one of the major problem in here if we want to perform the study. If the file is the virtual machine snapshot is encrypted, it will be hard to restore it without decrypting. However, if we have the virtual hard drive, then it is the complete content and the structure. We can just take it. It's like a plug and play kind of, it is a plug and play kind of situation. So we can take the virtual hard drive and we can mount it in another machine and we can immediately fire it up. However, the problem is that virtual hard drive would require more computing sources to run and some more computing resources to analyze its content. So these are some of the evidences that we could access, or we could find the traces of evidences in, and they come with their advantages and disadvantages. But if we employ proper algorithms, proper machine learning or deep learning algorithms, if we have sufficient data, eventually we would be predict when some cloud instances are getting abused. So based on our findings, we came up with our recommendations that can be taken into consideration. Even though Google Cloud Platform or AWS, they all have their security systems, but for the free tier or the lower level tier, the security is less restrictive. But if you pay more, the security gets more restricted or more effective, I would say. But for the basic tier, the security is not that good. You can create, and the monitoring is so less that you can circumvent the resource and network quota and you can launch your attack. And that's how the attackers have been abusing the cloud. So based on our findings, we came up with 3 major categories of suggestion or recommendation on how we can, ensure that cloud is not being abused. The first one is the preventive measure. So as soon as somebody tries to do certain malicious activity, we have to stop it. Second one is the detection. When the malicious activity is taking place, we have to stop it. And third one is recovery. If the malicious activity has taken place, then we have to stop it from propagating or affecting some other cloud instances. So for prevention, account authentication is one of the major things that we have to check so that nobody with a fake account can utilize the cloud. So address and contact information validation is something really important. Second thing is tracking multi-hop VPN, because multi-hop VPN is a popular choice amongst the attacker to stay anonymous, to stay stealth. So multi-hop VPN tracking is quite important once the account is created, because if you create multi-hop VPN, it eats up a lot of network quota. So creation of multi-hop VPN is somewhat resource consuming. So you have to keep an eye on that, or you have to monitor. By you, I mean the cloud service providers. Next one is setting up proper VPN, having or forcing the user to update the software. And last one, it is, we think is a good way. If we make sure that the cloud has a trusted software repositories, only from there user can download, then cloud can also keep a track of who is downloading which kind of software, so that things are a little bit better monitored. For detection, we have to employ, or we have to collect more data and probably have a more automated approach to find out whenever some malicious activity is taking place. And finally, for recovery, when an attack or a cloud instance is becoming malicious, we have to immediately block the traffic in and out of it, then isolate it, and finally enforcing the blacklisting of the user who was abusing that cloud platform. Well, this part is again a little bit debatable, because I am a legitimate user. I have my cloud platform and somebody hacked me and tried to use my cloud account to do some malicious activity. So those are a little bit different discussion, but enforcing blacklisting comes with that problem as well. And I thought that that would be relevant here to talk about. So these were our recommendation. And after we published this paper in ComSec 2020, it received a bunch of media attention, like a lot of tech reporter, tech blogger, they reached out to us asking about why, what motivated us and what happened. And the major tech report being the Register. So they were the first one to reach out to us. And after they featured our papers, lots of other papers and other tech reports, highlighted our papers. So if any of you are interested, you can reach out to me. I can share these links with you. And last but not the least, the future direction. So what is next? That we have identified, there are some security services that are already there and the drawbacks that we have currently in our work. So the next thing that we are moving towards is to building a forensic suite and a security testing suite for the virtual hard drives of cloud machines or the VM instances on the cloud. So that is the next step that we are going or moving towards. We are thinking about adaptive security techniques because not every instance of cloud, if being abused, they won't be done in the same way. Not all the cloud platforms would be used for propagating malware. Not all of them would be utilized for launching denial of services attacks. So what kind of security should be taken care of when it is a malware or when it is a DDoS? So those kind of adaptive security is another thing that we have to take into consideration. And last thing that we have not at all considered so far, and we should be thinking about it, like detecting the cloud abuse without any prior information. Like it's like a 0-day abuse. Like when a user is creating an instance, that time we have no idea if that instance is going to be used for launching an attack or just for doing some high performance computing. So these are some of the future duration and drawbacks we currently have in our work. And with that, I conclude my discussion. If anybody has any question, maybe they can send those to me to chat or for later. And these are my contact information if anybody wants to reach out to me and talk about anything to me.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Moy.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, and then we can continue to next speakers. Now it's time for Professor Hong Sang Chao. He is from Fuzhou Polytechnic, China. Professor Chao, are you ready to get your time for your presentation? Professor Chao? Professor Chao? Sorry. Professor Hong Sang Chao? Are you standby here? Professor Chao?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning. Okay.
Morning. So it's for our turn to make the speech, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But
Okay, so I'll present the PPT.
oh,
Okay, moment please. A moment please. ？Okay, so can you see the PPT?
yes.
Okay, so let's go.
Okay, you may continue.
Okay, clear.
Okay. Can you see me? Hello, can you see me? Hello.
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, we can see you.
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to have this opportunity to show a brief introduction to the development of IoT in China. And today I also bring two interesting videos to illustrate the current situation of IoT application in China and the application trend in the world. And before I start to introduce the Internet of Things in China, let's first experience the practical application in China via smart city transportation.
Nanjing has a population of 8 million, growing fast. Already, traffic volume is immense, making it a huge challenge for the city government to ensure mobility of its citizens.
We want to help the government, help people.
A moment please, we'll share the video.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay.
First, to measure, to
Nanjing has a population of 8 million, growing fast. Already, traffic volume is immense, making it a huge challenge for the city government to ensure mobility of its citizens.
we want to help the government, help people. First, to measure, to understand the traffic. Because if we can't measure it, we can't manage it.
Together with SAP, the city of Nanjing developed a next-generation solution. This includes sensors in all taxis and buses, as well as RFID chips in travel cards, all communicating automatically with traffic cameras. To make sense of the data, the SAP Innovation Center in Nanjing is using advanced analytical algorithms on the SAP HANA platform to provide a traffic performance index system. All information flows together in one huge digital map at the smarter Nanjing Center.
In total, in our platform, in our big data traffic platform, it processes over 100 million records per day.
This helps the city in its traffic planning process and allows for fast response to traffic congestions and prediction of patterns.
For example, if there's an event, football match, some kind of exhibitions where the people will come from. And when they leave, where will they go?
The analysis happens in a closed-loop process through smart learning functionality, which learns from prior patterns. All this to make commuting easier for the people of Nanjing.
We publish the result real-time to a mobile application, so the citizens can read the real-time data to plan their travel more smoothly.
Smart data technology from SAP to improve the lives of commuters, not only in China, but in megacities around the world.
Okay, now let's go back to the PPT. This one. Okay. So can you see the PPT?
Yes, we can see that PPT.
Let's go on.
Okay, and my name is Xiangshao Hong. And do you want to know where the other interesting video film is? Don't worry, I will show it at the end of the speech. Prevent you from running to the toilet for a long time. And now let's talk about the IoT in China. I will introduce 4 parts: the development history of China's IoT, and the second part is industry scale of China's IoT from the upstream to the downstream. And the third, driving factor and the development trend of China's IoT. The fourth, development of the sensor and the field distribution. And finally, I will show another video show. We have seen that. And the first part, the development of history in China is start from the year 2009. China proposed Perceive China. That's the first time and established the Perceive China Research Center in Wuxi. In year 2015, Chongqing University of Post and Telecommunication released the world's first wideband industrial IoT chip. The CY4520 is the chip number. The chip has the characteristic of low power consumption and low cost and miniaturization. It expands the working frequency band of industrial IoT chip and helps to achieve intelligent control of industrial productions. From this figure, showed the year 2013, from year 2013 to year 2019. The growth rate of my country's Internet of Things industry has been maintained at more than 15% since the year 2013. And the scale of the China's Internet of Things industry has grown from RMB about 500 billion in year 2013 to RMB 1.5 trillion in year 2019. And the yellow line, the legal line of the figure is the growth rate. Okay. In year 2020, the scale of China's Internet of Things industry is targeted at about 160 million yuan. It's estimated that the industry scale will exceed 2.7 trillion yuan by year 2025. Second part, industrial scale of the China's IoT. In year 2018, the biggest 3 basic telecommunication company of China Telecom, China Mobile, and China Unicom developed about 670 million cellular Internet of Things users, a net increase of 400 million users throughout the year. And the market size of China's IoT industry has increased from RMB about 600 billion in year 2014 to 1,000 about 400 billion in 2018, with a compound annual growth rate about 23%. For the upstream of the industrial chain, in basic hardware provider, Huawei HiSilicon launched the industry's first officially commercial narrowband IoT chip named Botica 120, which began large-scale commercial use at the end of year 2017. Huawei HiSilicon also launched Botica 150, a more superior narrowband IoT chip. In year 2019, the total shipment volume of Huawei HiSilicon narrowband IoT chip exceeds 20 million. Okay. For the basic software provider, the network transmission service provider in China is the China Telecom, China Mobile, and the China Unicom. And in year 2017, China Mobile's narrowband IoT base station construction covered more than 300 cities in China. Also, in year 2018, China Unicom has built 300,000 NB IoT base station. For the platform service provider, China Mobile OneLink is in a leading position. Also, the China Unicom established an exclusive partnership, and the China Telecom. The IoT platform that includes device management and application development function in the Chinese market. For example, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, JD, Xiaomi, and Huawei, including internet and IT field. And for the downstream of the industry chain, of course, the individual user market has the largest potential for future development. The third part, drivers of China's Internet of Things industry. The first is technology upgrading promote industrial development. The second is the demand for intelligent development of society promote the development of the industry. Constraint of China's Internet of Things industry. The first, industry standards have not yet been unified. The second, information security issues are prominent. The third, insufficient core application driving force. Now, the status of China's Internet of Things of industry. About the year 2018, China Telecom, China Mobile, and the China Unicom had 670 million cellular IoT users. The net increase of 400 million users throughout the year. In year 2020, there will be more than 50 billion terminals and devices connected to the world, and the total amount of data generated will be greater than 40 zettabytes. The average amount of data generated per person per day is expected to reach 1.5 gigabytes. The total amount of data in China in year 2020 will reach 1/5 of the total amount of global data, and the number of connected devices is expected to increase from 840 million in year 2016 to 3.5 billion. The development trend of China's Internet of Things industry, including three parts. The first part is the industry system resource integration. The second, artificial intelligence plus IoT. The third, blockchain with Internet of Things. Now let's see the development of sensors application. There are three stages. The first stage is the structured sensor. The second stage is the solid sensor. The third stage, starting from the year 2000, is the semiconductor and the intelligent sensors. And the function of the sensor will including microsensor and the microprocessor and the related integrated circuit. They were packaged together to complete the digital intelligent network at the system nice. Also, the mass technology including now. And here, sensor application field distribution. About 45% for the wearable device, and about 25% for the intelligent medical care, and the 10% for industrial control. About 20% for the others. Let's take more detail about the sensors. 21% is the flow sensor, and 19% is pressure sensor. About 14% is temperature sensor, and the 46% is others. This figure shows from year 2009 to the 2014. The total industry output value of my country's sensor industry showed an overall upward trend. The proportion of GDP is maintained at 0.1% to the 0.15%. Let's take a look about the other video. 这应该是刚刚那个。
新的分享，下一个新的分享，然后你的另一个 movie 有吗？
这个不是，是旧的。
这旧的那没关系，这个关掉。Okay, a moment please.
Okay.
Okay, I'll show you the video. This one, no? Okay.
The lighting industry is a very dynamic industry and it's changing rapidly.
This one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Yes.
In the middle of a big transformation
So
from being a product company,
Yes.
becoming much more of a systems and services company. And we are the leading lighting company when it comes to IoT. Primarily, we're working with cities, utilities, and service providers that operate buildings and landmarks. Philips Lighting has installed architectural lighting in many places. For example, the Bay Bridge in San Francisco, or the London Eye, or the Allianz Arena in Munich. When we light up a bridge, it's all about providing additional value to the city. It's about attracting more tourists. It's about making citizens feeling proud about their city. It's about revitalizing economic areas. And architectural lighting can have a strong economic positive impact. We measure that and provide that information to our customers. Big data services will become increasingly important for us as we're moving lots of data from these lighting installations across the globe. Philips Lighting has been using the SAP Cloud Platform for a couple of years, and we've been using that for the digital transformation of our company. The SAP Cloud Platform provides us with a scalable solution and also a long-term solution. We know that these installations will remain in the field for a long time, and we also want to measure these things in real time for over a long period of time. The sentiment analysis module that runs on the SAP Cloud Platform provides us with the data from the different social media channels, and that data is then exchanged by a standard
SAP API that runs on the SAP Cloud Platform and is then connected to our system that also runs in the cloud. We also know that social media is going to change dramatically in the next 10 years again. And we don't exactly know which way it's going to go, but we know that there's going to be more and more changes in the way how people communicate around social media. And we needed to have a partner. SAP is a long-term partner for us. The most important thing is that we gather all this data and turn that into valuable insights for our end customers. That can be additional revenue opportunities for cities, or it can be opportunities to optimize their workflows, or it can be opportunities to provide a better service to their citizens and to ultimately make cities more livable. What surprised us about working with SAP and the SAP Cloud Platform is the speed of innovation. We were able to put our first demo together in a couple of weeks. Our vision is to provide better lighting to customers across the globe, and we're working with SAP to make that vision happen.
Okay, now let's go back.
This slide shows a narrow generator as power supply. This is my research. My research is focused on a portable, flexible, wireless narrow sensors with self-powered for IoT. The new application of IoT are mostly depend on the quality and the quantity of the sensor. So how to improve the sensitivity of the sensor and put the sensor in anywhere as we can. The sensitivity of the sensor we will improve via narrow technology. And the quantity of the sensor we will minimize and power supply the sensor. So this figure shows we can apply a transverse force on the top of the gallium nitride metal rod, as the figure shows. And the color is the force. And the gallium nitride metal rod is a piezoelectric materials, which can convert the kinetic energy to potential energy, and then convert into electrical energy. This process can provide the power required for the sensor. Therefore, we can do the sensor without power supply. If the committee allows, I will briefly introduce the laboratory and the research process of my college. If the time is up, please search my published article with my ORCID. 对，我是不小心按到了。这上面共享视频，你打开的吗？你刚才打开了吗？不用，我不开，我最后一张还没讲完。最后一张 PPT 吗？就是最后一张。最后一张。我们还要再开一个吗？它已经共享了，可以，他们可以。OK。And my email, if you have any concern, please do not hesitate to contact me via mail. Okay, thanks for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much for Professor Xiao. And for the next session is presentation again from other speakers, and we can move to Miss Anissa.
Thank you, Ms. Azad. So thank you everyone for the international speakers. The materials are amazing. For the next speakers, we have Dr. Abur. Dr. Abur. Dr. Abur, are you here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Yep.
Thank you.
So this is my turn?
Present your presentation.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. So, do you mind, Pak So help me to show my presentation. So maybe 10 minutes, maybe, yeah. So allow me to read my presentation, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Josh. Thank you, Pak Anwar, yeah. Also Ibu Moy, and also Professor Chow. So I heard your presentation great. So this is my presentation depend with experience in Indonesia. So I will show you the example in my area. In Tasikmalaya. So Tasikmalaya is a small city. So I'm in charge in that area. Next, Pak. So this is Indonesia government policy to increase the ability of every teacher, especially in vocational school. So once again, allow me to read government policy of Indonesia. The government of Indonesia strengthening the successful system in continuing professional development for teacher and education personnel under the government regulation number 19 year 2017 on teacher. So in here, the content of regulation, namely supervisory management and upgrading teacher and education personnel through strengthening partnership collaboration among the central and local government, teacher, head teacher and supervisor, as well as community in implementing curriculum, empowering teacher working group and subject matter subject matter teacher forum, or we call MGMP, yeah. Head teacher working group, supervisor working group, professional working group, or headmaster, professional working group, or supervisor. Next, Pak. So this is revitalization of vocational school in Indonesia, because now we point with free learning, because our ministry pointing of learning by free in every school. So we will use presentation, yeah, 30% and 70%. You can use curriculum for free, depend with the school. So we call the design curriculum. So now in school in Indonesia, will be used 70% curriculum depend with the school need. Yeah. Next, Pak. So I will inform you also about our activities in some of school in Indonesia. So just make a sample in my area, because as a head of education office branch 12 in Tasikmalaya. So once again, allow me to read this information. The Internet of Things need to be developed in the world of education and used as one of the roles of education to face the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Vocational High School. We call in here, vocational school is the SMK, Sekolah Menengah Kejuruan. It's the right level of education to prepare early regarding knowledge and application of Iot technology. Here the vocational teachers who are members of the Indonesian Vocational Teacher Organization, in this case is the IGVIM, have and must have the latest capabilities for every teacher, namely good technology and the competency of Iot application expertise. But they are still learning, and currently teachers are still considered to be less capable in this field, especially in terms of security. To increase understanding and application of Iot, The Ministry of Education and in collaboration with qualified universities or institutes always hold training with the theme implementation of Internet of Things. Nowadays, we work together between education department and the university. Maybe we can use collaboration between Bandung Institute of Technology or maybe ITS, ya, Surabaya Institute of Technology, and so on. We're still doing like that. So next, after finish with my presentation, I will show announcement to join with us in one activities we call implementation of the Internet of Things, or IoT, to improve the competence of teachers and students in vocational schools and the system for how to protect them. The training aims to introduce teachers and finally to students about IoT, especially its implementation in its various uses, whether it is using light, temperature, and motion, or gas sensors like Mr. or Professor Cho do to increase student motivation and competence in the industrial era 4.0 in its activities. It turns out that the competence of student skill can be significantly improved through IoT training, even though in this pandemic era, which almost always uses virtual eyesight like this, like today. Next part, so this is several reasons why we need to develop IoT in Indonesian vocational school or SMK. Yeah, as a grassroots, the students should improve their abilities to read many information about a new technology, like Mr. Anwar said, that we should support the technology by the employee. Yeah? Employee in here, as a candidate employee, will be the student. In this case, it's vocational school. So there's several reasons why we need to develop IoT in Indonesia. First, IoT will become commonplace in the future. Almost any tool will require built-in intelligence that is secure and connected to one another. Like Professor Cho said, with his experience doing something in China. So IoT will transform and save our lives because it can be developed to tackle chronic disease. IoT is renewing existing industry. For example, there are sensors on delivery cards that can communicate with built-in sensors in traffic light and other things around us. Exploring the hidden potential of the participant or student in this case, in developing the latest technology with IoT. Challenge the creativity and innovation of participants in IoT development, and then produce innovation products based on IoT. So I have experience by myself and also in my office. I built by myself, we call smart home. So my home, I did and I built by myself, doing something related with IoT only using of a gadget like this or smartphone. So I can control the light, I can control the music, I can control aircon, and also I can control the music in my office and also the light of my office, and then running web, so I can control from whatever I stay. Even I stay in Bali, I can control from far away. So that's my experience. Next part, so the teacher should has background like this. Almost the teacher in vocational school should have ability like this: content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and then technological knowledge, and the character, who can say the mental. Yeah, the teacher should make student mental to become positive way. So Professor Moy said sometimes student or maybe people can hack everyone who use internet. So in this case, the student in Indonesia should teach by the teacher who already knowing about these activities, this scheme we call TPAC. You already know maybe. Next part, so we already has a training. So some training related with the whole of IoT. Yeah, for example, this is a training material that we already in Indonesia. Yeah, we use material like this. Yeah, first orientation and introduction to the Industrial Revolution 4.0, like Mr. Anwar said, and then introduction to microcontrollers. Now the Arduino, yeah, programming language. So some of the teacher and also student using Arduino product now become popular in Indonesia. So I use Arduino also using for the control my smart home from anywhere. I use Arduino. And then for best practice, labeling temperature sensor on with Arduino. Best practice proximity sensor on Arduino, gas sensor, servo like Professor Moy, yeah, or maybe Professor Chow, servo motor programming on Arduino, yeah, and then connectivity of devices with IoT platform, web or mobile, and then also hosting. Hosting means here is a work together between university or institute, yeah, Bandung Institute of Teknologi in West Java, and maybe you can use collaboration work together with ITS, yeah, Surabaya Institute of Technology. And then next is documentation, promotion, and business model. Next is a best practice. So this is a training materials that we already use for everyone, for the teacher and student. Next part, so. Currently, the teacher as a participant has received, they already received understanding of basic electronics. Yeah, like me, I am as a physics teacher and also electronic teacher. So electronic in here because of my hobby. So I like very much doing something to improve my ability in electronics and doing something for IoT because of just hobby. Yeah, control my rotator by the IoT radio, ham radio, so I can control my rotator from anywhere that I already stay. And then the working principle of the microcontroller, Arduino programming technique, IoT technology, applying IoT technology to solve life problems, implement IoT technology implementation in schools independently as well as in the community and apply business processes. Next number seven, security in the world of the internet and IoT. This is important thing. So that's why the teacher should learn about the security in the world. Don't make a student to be doing a negative thing about the internet, doing something that a negative thing that public didn't support of negative thing in internet and also how to control IoT. Next part. This is the final slide, and the next slide may be only the picture, yeah. So hope and development in every school or industry in Indonesia, yeah, for the teacher to support new employee for the industrial in Indonesia. Finally, they must be able to make an IoT project. For example, number one, I already use IoT, a small IoT, to control my house and also to control my office from far away. So this is only maybe 10% of IoT program. And then number two is smart health for the hospital, and then smart agriculture. Number three, smart agriculture. Now, some of vocational school in Indonesia, especially in agriculture subject, they already or begin doing something controlled by the internet using IoT and the Arduino tools to control watering and also feed up of fish, a fishery, and so on. And then also the smart water, and you can control the water to supply of agriculture business. And then smart city that Mr. Prof. Chow already explained about his experience. Next, Pak. So, yeah. So revitalization content, performance improvement of vocational high school through revitalization program is a service system of vocational adjustment based on link and match. So this is the content here. In every school, we already have curriculum adjustment for competency is relevant to graduate user. So that link and match with the industry. And then second, adjustment of educator staff qualification. So we push in the teacher. Cooperation of vocational high school management with is integrated with industry. We call based on link and match. Number four, the adjustment of facilities. That's our business in every school. So the government will provide the facilities to support the IoT or many of program in every school. And then five, the process of graduate certification. And then also, this is the important thing, the marketing of graduate. Yeah, the important thing is the marketing of graduate. So sometimes, okay, yeah, next. This is a learning process. Yeah, learning process that we already done in every school in Indonesia. This is just a sample, yeah, example in Tasikmalaya city, yeah, 5 or 6 hours from Jakarta. So I will show you this banner workshop PPTIK, yeah. We work together, yeah. Education Department of West Java work together with Bandung Institute of Teknologi. We always work together with university or institute that they already have a good experience about IoT, yeah, IoT Internet of Things. So this is our picture that maybe many people same idea with this situation. Yeah. Next, Pak. This is my office. Already doing, yeah, of course, choosing a best work in 4.0 in pandemic situation. So, yeah, working from home, working from office, and technology requirement to support us. That's all.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
Mr. Abur.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
all.
we have 2 minutes again.
Yeah, that's all. Finished.
Okay.
So this is the last
Oh,
slide. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
At the same time, you said to me and give announcement that finished. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pak
Yes,
So.
thank you very much, Mr. Abur.
Yep.
And then the next speaker is Mr. Mampuono. Mr. Mampuono, are you standing by here? Mr. Mampu? Yeah. Hello, Mr. Mampuono. Okay, you can. Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot hear your voice. Cannot listen, cannot hear.
Sorry.
Okay,
So,
yes.
like this. Okay. I just use my earphone that I can hear, yeah, the presentation better. But can you hear my voice clearly? Mbak Azeta?
Yes, I can hear your voice clearly.
Okay. Well done, this is my turn, right? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. The Honorable, the Rector of University of STEKOM, Mas Joseph, in all the resource persons from overseas and from Indonesia, and all the participants visiting the room for international webinar on IoT and cybersecurity industry. Hopefully that today in, Friday, blessed Friday, hopefully everybody coming here for maybe searching for new knowledge, searching for new experience, sharing, can get a lot of things useful and fruitful for our life. Yeah, I will, go ahead to showing my presentation by Azeta and by Anissa. Hopefully that the host has given me the chance to show my presentation. I'm trying to present something, but this is, I don't know exactly, it's moving. Okay, actually I've sent terputus tadi.
Iya, Pak.
Hello, saya bisakah dibantu? Could you help me to show my presentation in Mr. Josh?
Yes.
I've the WhatsApp of Mr. Josh, and if you can help me to show the presentation, although maybe it's PDF.
Okay,
I think
it was shared. It was shared
Yeah.
in here, Mr. Mampono.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So this is about the IoT cybersecurity. As you know that security is very important for our life. Even if you go to the kampong or neighborhoods in our country, not exactly in other country, but if you go to a real estate, you can find a security post. If you go to villages, there's always places like a hut or a cottage, something for like that. That's it's a place for person who in charge for security. So I think security has been a critical issue, like something that is presented by Mr. Johnson and also Mr. Anwar and other resource persons here. Okay, the background of my presentation here is, I think I have to say that our time right now, our period right now, what's so called the period of industrial revolution of 4.0, that everything is connected with internet and data, big data, virtual reality, Internet of Things, etc. Okay, everything is changed very rapidly. So it's calls for digital transformation across industries and society. You know that according to the report of Ericsson, there are around 18 billion of devices connected to IoT. And it's around 2022 next year, but we can see that we are connected to internet all the time. Even yesterday, I have to go to messages to get, you know, reflection message because my eyes has been, you know, get the strain because too many time watching the screen of, okay, laptop and also, okay, mobile phone, and that's a little effect of the security of using the Internet of Things. So today, the 18 billion of connected devices need something what's so-called cyber security and also privacy. While IoT devices are now commonly used in smartphones, you can, you know, there are Alexa or maybe Google smartphones. Then also, yeah, a lot of software developer create the devices and also the software for this kind of smart homes, smart cities, self-driving cars, and it's bringing numerous benefits such as effective communication between devices, upcoming things, saving time, of course. They also bring, but they also bring vulnerabilities and unprecedented security challenges. Go to the next slide, Mas Solekan. Yeah, we can see the pictures like this. And we can see that 2022 just now that I've said that totally around, yeah, 18. This is a prediction. If we go to 2025, we can also see that more than 50% of the devices in the world is connected to Internet of Things. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so everybody, the speaker or the resource person of these webinars said, I think quite many things about what is IoT. If we can okay, conclude that into shorter term is that the Internet of Things needs ecosystem, connectivity, things, that is the devices and sensors, and then data, communication, intelligence, and action. Go ahead. Mas Solekan, would you please? Yes. Internet of Things, the most important things here is the connectivity. And okay, there are the IoT devices, the IoT cloud, and application as third parties. So everything here, IoT device, connectivities with the IoT cloud, application and third party, everything needs security. Go ahead. Yeah, we can see the shift in the goal of information security. Today, the objective of information security is mainly to protect assets like money, trade secrets, business productivity, organization reputation, etc. But in the future, the objective will shift toward the protection of human life. We can go to the example, the next. Yeah, Maybe today, the attack of the security is like this. I've hacked into your core banking database. Pay me $500,000 or I will crash it. This is today. It's about asset. It's about money. But in the future, no. I'm just explaining the next picture. You can see the bandit, the attacker here, said, I've hacked into your self-driving car. All I ask is $10 million. I've texted you my account number. Choose not to comply, and I will crash your car. It means that this is about life. You know, you're driving your car, and while you're driving inside the self-driving car, you got the text like this. Your car has been hacked by the hacker. It's about your life. If you do not obey the threat of the hacker or attacker like this, your life will be your bets like that. Go ahead. The next. And this is one thing of the technology. I insert this here because this is okay. It has been done. You know that today we can write using our voice. I call that is writing using mouth or oral writing. We can also read not using our ear, our eyes, but we read using our ears because everything has been changed. Technology can change text into voice and voice into text like that. And now, if you use the virtual reality, even you can write using your pupils of eyes. You just move your pupil and you can start to type in virtual reality in 3-dimensional, and 360 degrees of visions like that. And now something that is implanted in the body of human being. You can see this is the example of Tia Prasivi, where auditory brain system is implanted and it can help her to listen or to hear the sound firstly in the in her lives like that. This is, you know, something that will be mass produced in something that will be happen in our future, not in a long time, but maybe next year or 2 years later. It's like that. Next. Yeah, we go to again the big challenge of securing the IoT. This is an article I tried to capture that BMW, be my wife is BMW, you know, it's a car company, luxurious car company in the world. There's a flaw of the security, and then it can make the hacker to unlock the door of the car. It's like that. The next. So this is the example. Even in 2015, the Jeep is moving, but it's hacked. Okay, it's very dangerous. Go ahead. The next slide. Okay. So the challenges are many. Okay, it could be from the complexity. A heterogeneous network means devices on the IoT are different with unique design and unique software, operating protocol, etc. So where does the security attempt even begin? And then sometimes uniform standards on the IoT, we will need to develop a uniform standard for devices to communicate. Okay, if for instance you have a device and I have a device, we want to communicate our device. If there's no standard, there will not be a communication. It's like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, a uniform standard makes the IoT that much easier to hack into. And go to the monitoring. Currently, organizations have SOC with IPS or DLP who will monitor the IoT network. Next. Yeah, this is an example of SOC or Security Operating Center. Okay, a facility that houses an information security team responsible for monitoring and analyzing an organization's security posture and ongoing basis. And then to detect, analyze, and respond to cybersecurity incidents using a combination of technology solution and a strong set of process, and typically staffed with security analysts and engineers, as well as managers who oversee security operation. Okay, the next. Go to IBM model for the IoT. We just
okay, excuse me, Mr. Ramona.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 5 minutes again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the okay, the model of IoT for IBM. And the next. So its layer is susceptible for a variety of attacks like that. Maybe from A, password attack, B, web application for now, vulnerabilities around clients or malicious firmware, man-in-the-middle attacks, information gathering or data leakage, eavesdropping, or command injection or data corruption. The next. Yeah. This is the OWASP Internet of Things top 10. According to OWASP, security that can be attacked today in this time or in this period is that from number one is the injection. So it happens if the untrusted data is sent to a code interpreter through a form input or some other data submission to web application. So if the web accept this kind of injection, it can be hacked. And broken authentication. So it enters from the login system. So it can make the attackers have the access of the user account. Okay, and even it use the admin account to use the websites like that. And then sensitive data exposure, XML external entities, broken access control. The next. Security misconfiguration, cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization using component with known vulnerabilities, and number 10 in insufficient logging and monitoring. Go ahead, the next. Yeah, I want to say a little about the Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP. You can open the, you can Google and try to find this kind of organization, and also the website. It's a non-profit foundation dedicated to improving the security of software. This is about software. And we are talking about the larger things. It's IoT, Internet of Things. Okay, so it recommends that there should be a holistic approach, focused not only on securing the device, but also the IoT environment it operates in. I mean, the IoT environment where the IoT operates in. It's like that. So the device, the cloud, the mobile application, the network interfaces, the software, the use of encryption, the use of authentication, the physical security, and the USB ports is very important to be pay attention with. So this is a kind of holistic approach for the security of the IoT. It's like that, and don't lag behind. And the next is thank you very much. So, terima kasih, arigatou gozaimasu, CC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mampono. And we go to the next session is Q&A. Maybe any audience wanna ask question live, you can raise hand first.
Okay, Miss Azeb. Hello. Everyone can hear me, right? Okay. So I have a question for Fuzhou Polytechnic China. Maybe it's a bit political, but it's quite interesting. So for Professor Chow, the question is there any impact on American government policies in the banning of using Huawei product? And is there accusation right that Huawei product have trouble in its security? So Professor Chow is what? Oh, enggak ada. Oh, I'm sorry. So okay, since Professor. Okay, so maybe we can skip that letter for later. So, oh, we have someone who raised hand. So, Rajas Ferry, I let her in.
Hello. Hello. Hello, we are back. Hello.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Before I ask you a question, let me introduce myself. My name is Rajeshwari. I'm a second-year student of STEKOM University, major in Information System. My first question is addressed to Mr. George Anwar. Mr. George Anwar, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. I have some questions. I will ask it one by one.
Okay.
My first question is, what are the potential challenges of IoT in terms of security, ethics, and privacy? And the one question more is, what are challenges IoT is currently facing?
Well, I mean, as everybody has mentioned, and it's actually known that IoT, one of the aspects of IoT that is an issue is security. And then part of it is only because a lot of early on, the simple protocol that's quite commonly used for IoT is MQTT, which is basically text-based. So it's very, very low security. Okay, but there are systems that are being worked on that improves the security, and the security will come. In terms of, I mean, that is the challenge. But one of the things is in the work that we're doing, we try to look at it where you're not looking at your IoT device, especially in manufacturing. The IoT device is a sensor that is reading sort of data. So you could get error in the data. So there is an early period that is dangerous and insecure, but if you do it in secure and then you're going about it in association with learning, then your system begins to have a pattern and recognize the pattern. So your IoT device can have certain level of intelligence. So then diverting from the regular norm, right, can actually invoke an alarm, right, which makes it a little bit safer. So yes, but it is known. Right now, the challenge with Internet of Things, just like the internet even itself, right, is security. So yeah, I think it's a balanced trade-off that you have to weigh.
One more question.
Yeah.
Yeah. IoT implementation can be more easily understood by young generation, but it can be quite difficult when it comes to old generation and even to underdeveloped country as well. How do you see this, and what is your opinion about this? Do you agree if industry applies IoT overall?
Well, so that's a good question. That's really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true, right? There's always going to be a generational thing. But even given time, you know, my father was able to use the computer and also use the internet to gather the news. I mean, he was a journalist, so news was very important. And then once he figured it out, I mean, he was never off the internet.
Yeah.
So even though it's true that it's generational thing. I mean, they'll come around. I mean, I don't think you can say that there's an older generation that insists on using the rotary phone. I mean, everybody will use the cell phone. So
yeah.
So they will. But I do agree with you that the implementation of IoT is coming from the youth. And that's why it's important. It is important that we teach the youth and get youth very used to doing, using the internet. And they do. They have the power of it. So it's just the way technology works. Technology is a very youthful field.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. And my next question is addressed to Professor Moy Chatterjee.
Yes.
Hi. I have some questions.
Sure.
Yep. My first question is, there are some security measurements that most cloud service provide, such as encryption, firewalls, and so on. Is that still that cloud vulnerable to be attacked, even though they use encryption? Is that mean that our data is still not secure?
Well, that's a good question. So when you're encrypting your data, that means when your data is in the middle of transmission, that time it is not out in the open. So it's like hidden while it is transmitting over the network.
Yeah.
But if you have some vulnerabilities, if you have some security issues in your own system, or whoever your data is going to reach, if that receiver end machine has some sort of vulnerabilities, the encryption won't be able to guarantee that, okay, your data is safe. So during transmission, it provides some sort of security or hiding of your data, but still at the receiver and sender ends, it is vulnerable.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. The next question. Sometimes we install some software from internet, and that website asks us to allow them to access our cloud drive. Is that one kind of vulnerabilities also, that our cloud can be hacked in future? And even though we ever allow it, then is it possible to decline it?
Wow, that's a good question. You're asking tricky question. Yes, it's possible. We have to, we have to make sure that the softwares we are downloading, those are coming from trusted companies. By trusted, we mean that, it is digitally signed that sign is verified by some signature generating or signature certifying companies, say for example VeriSign, or maybe even Google or Amazon. So some company verified that, okay, this company can be trusted. So that's something we have to make sure that it is not coming from some ABC Corp or my software company, kind of,
Yeah.
there is some indication that you would know.
Okay. And the last question, may I?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. How far ISO 20001 ensure a company can manage customer information securely? When a company is certified by ISO 20001, is that mean that all data will be managed securely? Because there was a data leakage issue in Indonesia, which happened several days ago, that Indonesian government health insurance has been hacked and 274 million data has been leaked. And for your information, that organization has been certified by ISO 20001. Even though we can secure the website, but still attackers already had our personal information. How to overcome this? Thank you.
How to overcome this? Okay.
Yep.
Do you want the simple answer?
Yeah, okay.
Do not connect to internet.
Yeah.
No, actually,
Okay.
well, once you connect to the internet, okay, this is this is a very wonderful question, but in today's world, everything is connected, and today's talk is about how connected we are, right? Starting from our biological, all these medical devices, starting from our home devices, our car, everything is connected to internet. Everything is connected in today's world. So the data is already out there once we connect to internet. If somebody wants to hack you, they can social engineer you. They can follow you to a coffee shop or airport where you are connecting to an open Wi-Fi. So our data is not very secure, so or not very private. So maybe we can use some VPN to gain some sort of sense of privacy and security. But still, well, to my knowledge, I cannot say that our data is 100% secure. Okay, so it will more and more become available to third parties, some other companies, some other device. So it will only become more exposed. So,
but
to my knowledge, I don't think we can make it sure that we can hide it 100%.
But ma'am, it is the company responsible also that they have to ensure the customer information.
They say that they would do it, but I mean, have you seen the news on Facebook? They have been selling our data. I mean, Fitbit, they had some sort of setup where they exposed sensitive military data, like the US military troops were wearing Fitbit and their data became available to a third party. So the companies tells us responsible, but we don't know what ultimately they're doing with our data. So that's also, it's a little bit skeptical. I know I may sound a little bit skeptical, but we cannot say for sure that they are making it 100% secure for us.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
I hope I could answer your questions.
Yeah, you answer at all. Thank you. And so sorry for the moderator, I couldn't turn on my camera. Yeah. Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay. Thank you, Rajaswari, for the question. That was such an amazing question session. So we have Mr. He wants to ask something. Mr. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me unmute. Okay. Mr. Hari, you may ask the question. You can unmute.
Okay, I try to unmute, but I cannot. It's really late in the evening, I think, in USA. Good evening for Mr. Anwar and also Mrs. Joy. I'm Hari Ginardi from Surabaya in Indonesia. I really enjoy your presentations. And let me first come to Mr. Anwar. Hi, Mr. Anwar. Mr. Jos Anwar.
Hello.
Yes, yeah. Even you're from mechanical engineering, but your introduction to UFAD in the building management system is very interesting. And the first things that I want to know is there a showcase or other presentations platform where we can have or we can browse your students' project in IoT? So I think you have more than what you have been presented in here. And maybe it will give also ideas to our student and also our lab if we can.
Yeah, there is actually. We have one site that I believe is actually open to the public that describe the kit that we sent, to the students, so that during this pandemic they're able to do the labs at home. So we have to do that. We have to make that adjustment. We have to send the kits, which, by the way, unfortunately, I have to mention, we send it all over the world because our students all went back home. So it went all over the world. And the only country that kit had problems getting to the student was, unfortunately, Indonesia. Customs actually threw them away, the kits. But anyway, so we do have that site. I can post where that site is. And then, yeah, I do have videos of all my students' projects, which is about 54 of them. This semester, there's about 54 of these projects. And we're in the process of making it, collecting, and having it hosted somewhere. But I can figure out how to, if you want to, give you access to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Hari, is that all?
He's muted.
Okay.
So sorry, I'm muted. That's very good, Mr. Anwar. And then also one more question about the use of the energy. We do the same thing for the smart building in Indonesia and also in my students' projects, that we try to add more sensors in here and there, and with the aim, for example, for reducing the use of the energy.
Right.
But we don't have the data that support that the use of algorithm, especially when we use the AI and also the computing sensors, do they still work in efficient, energy efficient smart building, or this IoT also requires more energy in other 24-hour operations?
No. That's a very good question. Yes. We do actually. Yeah, that's very good, because we went into that discussion or argument as well. Is that once we install all these sensors, does it actually get the benefit? So one of the things is, in the systems that we do, we only spot check. It's not that the building is completely sensorized. It's not. So that's why we have those IoT devices and that cart, basically. So we actually go in. So that's why we were saying pre-occupancy, we make a measurement. Post-occupancy, we make a measurement. Then every so often we go in to spot check. And it's only those that we know how well the building works. Now, on that particular project or experiment with the New York Times, it was a very, very rare case, because in all of these studies of energy efficiency and building efficiencies, right, most of these are to give the lead rating, right? The ratings of the buildings. We want to sit there and validate them. So a lot of times in these different systems on the buildings, when we make these measurements, there's always one argument. The one argument that comes in is these buildings are different. These buildings are different. They're in different locations. You can't compare apples to apples, right? They're apples to oranges because they're different buildings. So you can't compare efficiency. The unique thing about the New York Times building was that the CEO of that building, when they built the building, specifically did it so that we can, because the argument at that time was, is the underfloor air distribution system better than the overhead air distribution system? So he built this building where half of it is overhead, traditional air distribution, and half of it was underfloor distribution. And the floor plans were exactly the same through all the floors. It was like one of these golden opportunities that they did it. And then we were able to make the comparison. And we weren't necessarily very happy with the results that we got, because it turns out that the underfloor air distributions, which they thought was very promising for low energy, wasn't. It wasn't. It was again, it was in the noise in terms of how they were compared. But anyway, yes, you have a very good point in terms of they're not instrumentation all the way. Okay, but there are more and more low power sensors nowadays. So it is, right? And then with these IoT and low power sensors, you don't have to measure them continuously. They can wake up from deep sleep. Like all my students use the ESP32, which is a very low power device. So you can put it in deep sleep and then every month wake up, take the data, send it to the cloud, and then go to sleep. Very little power.
Can I get some sample data for our students' project to compare with what has been done there with your research, Mr. Anwar?
For the buildings?
Maybe yes.
For the CBE? Yeah. I'll contact CBE, which is the Center for Built Environment, and they actually have a website that has all the data for all the buildings that we've done the test for. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, Mr. Anwar. Thank you very much. Can I move to Mrs. Moy directly, the moderators, or?
Yes.
Thank you. It is a fresh blood in the cybersecurity research, Mrs. Can I just call you Mrs. Moy or Ms. Chatterjee?
Yeah, call me Moy. That's fine.
Okay, thank you, Moy. The simulation platform is interested. I will get into it from your publication, as you mentioned before. But also, I think it is more benefit for us if our student can do something to redo your research, to explore it more, and probably we or they, the students, can offer you suggestions. How can we get to your program and the environment setup for your cloud simulations? Like how about the data for cyber attack that you made or you create, and other vulnerabilities list that already set up and checked? How can we do more in redoing this in our university?
Okay, so for most of my research, I use open source tools. So if any of your students are interested, or if you are trying to design some projects based off that, I can share some list of the tools that I have been using. And as for the data, most of my data are simulated again. And some of my data we share through GitHub. We create repository and share through GitHub. So those are all public. So if you ever want to utilize any of those information, you can again either look it up online or you can reach out to me so that I can share some. So
okay, I will get into it. And if later on, I'm not know for now, but if later on my students, I don't know, 1 or 2 or more, interested to do so, can you help us also to co-supervise the work of our students? Of course, I know you are very busy there, but I think supervising the bachelor student is not also takes a lot of time. Yeah, just give
Yes.
directions and check whether they are doing right. Can you help us to
Yes, that would
supervise?
be that is doable. We can do some collaborative work. That's perfectly
Great.
doable.
Thank you. I email you for the details. Thank you for
No
the
problem.
answer, and thank you for the time, moderator. Back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hari. Thank you so much. So back to the first question for Professor Chao from Fuzhou Polytechnic, China. So I have to forewarning you that the question might be little bit political. So there's this American government policies that banning using Huawei product. Is there any impact of these policies? And if it really true, the accusation of American government that the Huawei product have a security problem. So what do you think about that?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
This is very sharp question. And my answer is there has been a trade problem since human economic behavior, which is only a problem of its scale and the size. And the reason or the excuse is only a beautiful explanation. So that is a very huge trade deficit that I cannot balance. So if you trust me, if Huawei has some action, why other companies in China will not have such a situation? So I don't think the Huawei products is the problem. The trade is the problem.
Okay, thank you. Maybe another another speaker opinion. Maybe if you guys want to add to the statement, maybe that's all.
Okay.
No, okay. No, thank you. Yeah, but I think my personal opinion that once you connect to the internet, it's everything could be hacked anyway. So there's no. So maybe we have another question for Indonesian speakers. Maybe. Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me check on the. Okay. Pak Abu, Mr. Abur. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bu Anissa.
Okay, so the program on the IoT for schools, at first the program that it's so what is it called? It's so fighting, like it's exciting, but as long as it goes, it does sustainable.
The last word I missed the last word, Ibu Anissa. So because the connection maybe in my area.
Okay, I'm sorry. So can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So how to create a program to the schools that long last are sustainable?
Okay. So actually every school in Indonesia already has a subject in every school. So we have 150 subjects, include many things. Yeah, machine, electronics, mining. So I will focus in electronics, and I will focus in my area. Basically, this is only for example in Tasikmalaya. So we have 2 schools or 3 schools. They already has a program, work together with industry. Of course, will sustain because they have already worked together with the industry related with control, yeah, using of internet with a small equipment, yeah, Arduino, yeah. They mean in here is a vocational school. They use for support the agriculture problem, to beat up watering and so on, to check the humidity of the soil and so on. So after that, the subject in vocational school there can continuing with the program helping for the farmer. This subject, yeah, why the teacher or student understand about this subject, because West Java province, especially education department of West Java province, work together with Bandung Institute of Technology, maybe one day with Surabaya Institute of Technology, yeah, with Pak Ashari, maybe. So one day, we already has a good collaboration between education department of the Java province and ITB. So I think this is a sustainable. And now we will focusing in ethics, Ibu Anissa, ethics, internet ethics, to avoid more problem and all of us problem with hacking. Yeah? Only that. Thank you, Bu Anissa.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abur. So for we have one last question for Dr. George Anwar. So there's it's very curious how you can work or teach in UC Berkeley, and could you just tell your life journey just a little bit?
Yeah, I wonder myself too, is how is it that I can teach at UC Berkeley? Well, I mean, the how I don't know. One of my professors called me and asked if I wanted to teach at UC Berkeley, and after I graduated, and I said yes. But I think I was fortunate in the sense that I got the opportunity to study outside of Indonesia. Okay, not okay. Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the education system in Indonesia it's not up to par, but I think
no. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think one of the observations that I have made that is a big difference, and I get the opportunity to do see Indonesian students, not too many. I want more, but not too many that do come, and I get to teach them. And there's a very significant difference between students that are educated in the West compared to students that are educated in actually even in Asia in general. And I got the opportunity to be educated because I followed my parents, and we came to the United States when I was in the 5th grade. So I went through the grade school, I went through high school, and then I got to go to Berkeley to study Berkeley. And part of it is being in that education system from the beginning. So one of the things that I also have noticed that in Indonesia, the education begins to address the issue about critical thinking. Okay. And here in the US, from a young age, you're implanted to critical think all the way from even kindergarten. I mean, you're always asked about your opinion, wrong or right. You're asked about your opinion, so you begin to be able to think and have your thoughts. In terms of why I got to teach in Berkeley, I really don't know why is it that I got to teach in Berkeley. I don't know. I got asked to. It wasn't my plan to be a teacher. It was my plan to be an engineer, and I was happy being an engineer until my professor calls me and say, "Do you want to come and teach?" And I always enjoyed, for some reason, I actually enjoyed teaching. And then I find out from my father that his father and his grandfather and his great grandfather were all a line of teachers in Indonesia from Dutch. So I guess I was meant to be a teacher. But the one thing for me that was different, and I know why I got to teach, actually I do know why I got to teach to Berkeley, is because when I was going through it, and then once I finished, Berkeley just recently went through a transition from being an extremely theoretical school to one that's a little bit more practical. So before, Berkeley was all just theory. It's like you're going through engineering, it's pretty much like an applied physics school. But now they can't, they have to deal with industry. So they have to be a lot more practical. And I was that one exception. I was that one exception student that liked to play with things and hardware. And I was a mechanical engineer that actually wanted to be an electrical engineer. So I did a lot of the things with processors and so forth. And none of the professors at Berkeley wanted to teach those type of classes, and they needed to do that. So that's why they called me, because I just enjoyed doing it. That was it. Yeah. I mean, other than that, I don't know, I'm an Indonesian just like any other Indonesian. So.
That was awesome. So unfortunately, we already way off the time. So it's already past. In here, it's 11 past 19. So sadly, we have to. Oh, we have one more. Wait a second. What? I'm sorry. We have one more question. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. We have one more for Professor Moy. I'm sorry. Is there? I'm sorry. Apakah mungkin? Okay. So how much? How much do the cybersecurity alumni or graduates that or major in cybersecurity get paid, and how in America, to do those selection to cybersecurity engineer?
You're breaking up a little bit. Are you asking about, let me rephrase what I heard. Are you asking about how many cybersecurity graduates we have in USA and how the schools make selection, or the industry makes the selection? Is that what
The
you're
industry makes this.
Okay, well, I don't know the exact figure, but I know for a fact that there is a skill gap between the need of the industry for skilled cybersecurity worker and the cybersecurity graduates. So there is a gap, but I am sorry, I am not very sure about the exact figures, but people work with cybersecurity, or the academia people like us who are working with cybersecurity, we are always one step behind the attackers. The attackers are always 5 steps ahead of us. We are always trying to play a game of catching up to them. So yes, there is a skill gap between cybersecurity requirement and the professionals. I am sorry, I'm not aware of the exact numbers. But if any of you are interested, you can. Sorry, you were saying something.
Oh, yes, you can continue first.
Oh, I was saying that if any of you are interested, there is a website called InfoSec. So you can always check on the website of InfoSec. They have some numbers. They have, how many people graduate, how many percentage of computer science graduate work in cybersecurity and information like that. So you can go and check that website. I'm sorry, I could not answer it correctly.
Yeah, it's okay. And then what is the salary of graduate who master cybersecurity in America?
Okay, so if you are, it's a little bit location specific. So if you are having an undergraduate degree, so probably the salary would range between $60,000 to $80,000 per year. If you have PhD, if you have masters, it would be somewhere probably more than $100,000 per year. And if you have PhD and if you are moving to West Coast, like if you go to California and work for companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, then your salary would be, I don't know, sky's the limit. It could very well be, I don't know, 180K to 200K per year. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. And yeah, finally we come to the end of webinar. We would like to say thanks again for all speakers, Dr. Joseph also, Mr. Mampono, Dr. Abur, Dr. Anwar, Professor Moi, and Professor Chow for their informative and interesting talk and answer all questions. And thanks to all students, thanks to all audience for joining active participation. Thank you everyone for attending to the webinar. And hopefully this presentation will be beneficial for audience. If we have some mistakes, we will say sorry and thank you for attention. And good afternoon. See you on the next webinar.
Yeah, see you then.
Bye everyone.
Regard from Tasikmalaya City. Regard from Tasikmalaya City. Pak Jos, thank you very much. Pak Anwar,
Thank you very much.
Professor Choi, Dese.
See you next webinar.
Pak Sol, makasih ya Pak Sol ya, tadi dibantu ya.
Ya, terima kasih semuanya.
Thank you.